about 4 years old or 6. Friends of mine bring that picture to my lab, and I asked them to draw a picture of a human being, 4 years old. And this is what they come up with. Some of you still draw like that. Anyway, after they make this drawing, they bring it into school, and the teacher gives them crayon to color the buildings and all that. And then the teacher walks toward the wall to hang them up. And I said, don't hang them up. She said, why not? Because you will arrest the child at that level if you hang it up. She says, I don't know what you're talking about. So I called the kid over, and I said, how does that guy get into that building? And the kid says, I made the building too small right away, or the man too big, and he's changed right away. Then I asked him, does this guy eat anything? Looks like he never ate anything in his life. So the kid adds mass, not very good. You know what I mean? And he'll never do that again. That's what I mean by interrupt children. Don't hang up what they do, because it's childish. You know what I mean? There's people say, how do you get to children? That's how you get them. You ask them questions, because this guy can't get in that door. See? Now, I'm going to tell you a little more about that so you'll understand it better. Some assistant to the dean at Princeton came to some of my seminars. He came with a negative attitude. And when he left, he said, would you mind coming to Princeton and talking about the way you think? I said, they wouldn't listen to me either. He said, I'm assistant to the dean, I can make them listen to you. I said, good, okay. So I said, I'd like everybody to come, not just the sociology department. That's who he wanted me to address, the sociology department. I said, I want to address the whole university. How do you do that? He said, just say the subject is man can think or reason. That'll make them all angry. They'll all want to come. So it made them angry and they all wanted to come. So they had to hold a meeting in the auditorium. And the head of the optics department, that's lenses and magnifying, he said, I take issue with you. I think man can think and reason. So I said to him, I haven't said one word yet, and you've come up with this. I said, give me one example of man thinking anything. So he said, there are thousands of examples. I says, I can't do anything with that. Give me one. He says, well, there was a time when there was no camera, and somebody had to think of a camera. See, that's where he took issue with me. So I said to him, did you know that in the Holy Land, 1,000 years ago, they made domes out of clay, mud, and they used to sag. So they put branches in with the mud to keep it from sagging. And they had no glass windows in those days. So they made a small hole in the mud, very small. And if the sun was out, you saw people walking upside down on your wall, on the inside. Did you know that? If you go into a barn today, where the knothole, you know what I mean by a knothole, was pushed out, and there's cows walking outside, you'll see them walking upside down on the wall. Not very sharp, but the smaller the hole, the sharper the image. Anyway, that's where the pinhole camera came from, I told him. So I said, you mean man never invented it? Well, that suggested it. Now the people 1,000 years ago used to charge 2 pieces of silver to see the upside down world. So you went into their home, you gave them 2 pieces of silver, and then you'd unplug that hole, and you'd see cows walking upside down. He called it the upside down world. So that's where that came from. He was no longer aggressive. So he said to me, what about the motion picture camera? He said, somebody had to think of it. I said, the Chinese 1,500 years ago made a girl out of paper She looked something like that. Can you all see it? It's called a dancing girl. That's what they called it. And they cut this out of paper, and they glued a lot of pieces of paper together and painted it black. And when they put a candle in front of it, the candle flickered, and the girl moved. The shadow moved. Do you understand that? Nobody ever sat down and invented a movie camera right away. It's a series of developments. Do you understand what I'm talking? Little by little, over many years, until if you put 3 candles there, you had 3 dancing shadows. I hope you understand that. So you don't need to say, who invented the movie camera? Nobody invented it. Nobody can sit down and say, God made a movie camera. The brain can't do that unless it sees something. Okay. If you understand that, I met a guy named Osceola, who was, the real Osceola was the Indian chief in Florida. I said, do you know where the bow and arrow came from? He said, no, but his great-grandfather told him that the Indians, American Indians, used to skin a bear and put it out in the sun, and it would shrink to half the size, and that bothered them. So they built a frame around the bear and tied pieces of leather to keep it from shrinking. Trying to understand what I mean? They didn't want it to shrink that much. How did they cut the leather? With natural glass, called obsidian. They cut strips of glass, of the leather. But when they put the leather in the sun, it shrunk to a short, fat piece of leather, and that bothered them. So they tied the leather to a twig of a tree, real tight up and down, so it couldn't shrink as much. But they didn't always find a thick enough branch, and if you used a thinner branch, the leather shrunk and made a bow. Do you think you know what I mean? If you don't understand me, when you cut the leather strip into a fine strip like that, and you tie it to a thin branch, and the thin branch is like that, the leather shrunk and bent the branch this way, and you had the bow.
Want to hold it up, Jacque? Hold it up?
Yeah. The bow looked like that. When the leather shrunk, it pulled the wood into a bow shape. And that's where the bow and arrow came from. And if you plucked on it, it went bang. So if you took different sizes of it, you made a heart. But man didn't sit down and say, I got to make a bow and arrow. It doesn't work like that. All inventors work the way I'm talking about. They see something, and that something stimulates them. Now, we don't always know what it was, but here it is again. This is a man sitting in the cave. Can you see it? It's not a very good drawing. When normal little boys climb a hill, if they step on a severe incline, they slip. But you look for a slight flat, and you get up by stepping on the slight flats. Do you know what I mean by that? After you live there 10 years, the hill gets to look different. It gets to look like this. By stepping on the slight flats, after 10 years, it looks like steps. So when you move to a new cave, you made steps. But you don't sit back and say, I gotta make steps to get up the hill. Nobody can do that. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's what I mean by man can't think or reason. He has to have experience. He sees a leaf fall and spin. That's where the propeller came from. Some leaves are twisted, and when they fall, they spin. That suggested the propeller. Leonardo da Vinci was a nature lover, always out in the woods looking at nature. And that's why I had so many ideas. Now, if you want a kid to become creative, let's say you have a kid, and you want that kid to become creative. First of all, I want to tell you what people told me. They told me that some people were creative and some weren't. That doesn't tell me anything. Doesn't teach me anything. So I said, what is creativity? So we don't know what it is. It's just some natural occurrence in man's brain. Now let me tell you what creativity is. You can write it down if you're going to forget. Creativity is taking known elements and putting them together in unique ways. Do you know what that means? Like, they go to a movie and they see a Martian. They say, boy, those Hollywood people sure are good at making Martians. They have imagination. They don't have imagination. The Martian has a grasshopper's head and crab's claws. That's what I mean by known elements put together. Do you understand that? They can't sit down and create a Martian. It has to be made of known elements put together in unusual ways. That's what a writer is. He reads a lot of stories and he gets ideas from the stories and he rewrites it. So if you ask a creative artist, what makes you creative? He says, I don't know, it's just something that comes to me. He doesn't know. I ask children, how do you walk? He says, I don't know, I used to crawl, then I got up and fell over, then I got up and I walked. So I tried to make a robot when I was 17. It kept falling over. So I said to myself, what is walking? I said, I don't know. So I said, you better find out what it is. So I got up like this. And I said, in order to walk, I have to take the weight off this leg and head it in that direction. Then I have to take the weight off this leg and head it in that direction. Then I built a robot that didn't fall over. If you do a description of what walking is, if you take all the words that are empty, like a person says, I met a nice man. What do you mean by nice? What do you mean by nice? He had $10 million and he gave $2 to a poor family. Is that nice? It's nothing. So ask people what they mean when they use the word, the world ought to live in peace and harmony. How do you do that? I don't know. So it's nothing. It's noise. When a person says, two bad people kill each other, they should learn to be brotherly. Well, how do you do that? It's all left out. So I'm going to tell you what the Venus Project is now, if you don't know. The Venus Project is a plan for having a world that has no war, no hunger, no unemployment, and no corruption. How do you do that? Here's how you do it. You declare all the Earth's resources as the common heritage of all the world's people. Does anybody doesn't know what that means? All the Earth's resources become the property of all the nations of the world. They are to join together, and all the artificial boundaries that separate people are taken away. And all people are told that they can do anything if they go to school and learn how. So when I traveled through the world on a lecture tour, I saw Arabs in Arab garb with cell phones. I saw photoelectric cells on the backs of camels to heat up the coffee. Isn't that amazing? So it's spreading technology. And what you have to understand is where it comes from. Where do ideas come from? I don't know, it's just something that I'm born with. No. Here's where it comes from. If you show a kid pictures of insects, all kinds of insects, spiders, centipedes, grasshoppers, moths, the more pictures they have a broader frame of reference. Then show them different kinds of people from Japan, China, Thailand, different faces. He has a broader concept. But if he just sees Americans, he doesn't understand when he sees a Filipino. What's the matter with him? Well, what a funny face he has. Nobody has a funny face. They're different than we are. You know what I mean? So show a kid thousands of pictures, then ask him to draw. He'll draw more than he would had not seen those pictures of insects. So the people in Hollywood look at a lot of picture books, look at different sailboats, motor cars. The more you look at, the broader your creativity. So anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about? And if you deprive a child of looking at pictures of different kinds of people, different types of electric motors, hundreds of different types. The more they look at, the broader the creativity. Creativity is not something you're born with. It's something you're trained to by showing kids pictures of different things. Then he says, I'm going to make my own people. He makes them of a little bits from all the other people. Do you understand what I mean? Now, people like to believe their own kind is special. I'm a Swede and I'm proud of it. I'm Norwegian and I'm proud of it. That separates people. That's not good. You just say, I'm a human being and I'm proud of it. See, when you make a patriot of somebody, they say, pledge allegiance to the United States. My grandfather loused me up. During the Depression, he said people came from all over the world to America, and they brought the printing press. The Arabs gave us mathematics, I don't know if you know that, algebra. A guy named Algebra was an Arab, gave us algebra. So if you teach children that all nations have contributed to the well-being of the United States, instead of this is strictly American, then you're using it as propaganda. Do you know what I mean? And you can't dislike anybody from any country. You understand that their country is limited because they don't have the exposure we have. Americans are exposed to all kinds of ideas from all over the world. So my grandfather says to me, never pledge allegiance to any one country. And he said, pledge allegiance to the earth. Never dump any toxic material into the oceans or rivers. It'll kill fish. And in time, it'll kill people. So he said, just pledge allegiance to the earth and everybody on it. I said, how do I do that? I said, just refuse to pledge allegiance. So the teacher got up and said, we're all going to pledge allegiance to the United States. I says, I can't do that due to my upbringing. She says, oh yeah? She grabbed me by the ear right to the principal's office. And she said to the principal, he doesn't want to pledge allegiance to the flag. So the principal said to the teacher, you're excused. The minute she walked out, he put his arm around me. He says, why don't you want to pledge allegiance? Everybody does. I said, everybody once believed the earth was flat. That doesn't make it flat, but everybody believes. So he said to me, what do you think of our teaching methods? I said, sir, can I be frank with you? He says, of course, it's the only way to be. I said, they're terrible. The teacher uses a language that I don't understand. When I spell cat with a K, she said, that's wrong. Now what the hell does that wrong tell you? Nothing. She said, we could have used a C instead of a K. That's the way we do it. But she said, that's wrong, which doesn't tell you anything. Then she said, that's not what I told you. That doesn't tell me anything either. You understand me? Just saying this is the greatest country in the world doesn't tell me anything. I said, you have to give me more information. Well, it's isolated from the rest of the country. There can't be an invasion right away. They have to cross the ocean to get there. You know what I mean? Now, where did we get this land? We stole it from the Indians. The Indians didn't say, come on over, build whatever you want to build, do whatever you want to do. No, we slaughtered thousands of Indians. And after that, we put up a reward of $10 for every Indian you killed. There were government agencies. And a guy walked over to a government agency and he said, I just killed 10 Indians. So the government says, how do we know that? I said, what do you mean? Got to bring back a piece of the Indian. Scalp. So they started to scalp Indians and brought 10 scalps back. That's how they knew how many Indians you killed. But the Indians fought back. They fought real hard. So we slaughtered millions of buffalo to try to starve the Indians. After we succeeded in that, we drove them into the desert region and gave them the worst land in the country. Very little good land. And we took it away from them. And when they say the sun never sets on England, what do you think, where do you think the British got all that land from? They stole it by wars, invasions. All nations, Germany, England, France, all stole the land. So I'm saying they're all corrupt. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not mad at any one country, they're all lousy. People ask me, where's a good place to go? I said, I don't have to make it. So, what does the Venus Project really want? What the Venus Project wants is to tell all people that they are capable of great creativity. They're capable of good design if they're educated to do so. But if they live in a primitive country, they do the same thing over and over again. Like up the Amazon River, there are natives that build boats the same way they built them 1,000 years ago, rafts. They copy their friends, but they never change. But in a country where you say, think differently, see if you can work out a boat that's faster, cheaper than the one you're making. So you have to encourage people to do that. Otherwise they do the same thing. They copy each other. Okay? Now, when I say the first man that made an airplane doesn't make an airplane from his head. He says, man tried to fly, what did he do? How did he do it? He made wings and he beat them. That didn't work. He made wings that were too small, the plane didn't get off the ground. So you got to find out about, I'm going to use old language, the mistakes of other people. Nobody ever makes a mistake. I think I mentioned that before. They don't know. How do you know how big to make a propeller on an airplane? This big, this big, this big. You have to make different sizes, find out which works. That's what I mean by nobody ever makes a mistake. When a guy introduces another guy to his sister, if he's from Sicily, and if the guy scans his sister with sexual intent, looking at the legs, the breasts, he wants to sock the guy because that's the thing to do. If you come from Naples, Italy, that isn't the thing to do. If you come from Sicily, that's the thing to do. So it depends on where you're brought up and the values. All your values are handed to you by your parents. Good boys don't do that. Good girls don't do that. And don't do what? They tell you don't do that. Don't sit around and pet. Wait till you get married. All kinds of stuff which has nothing to do with anything. And they're just your folks talking to you. They mean well. And they're trying to protect you. But they don't know what to do. So I'm saying that most of the world doesn't know what to do. Even the riots in Egypt, they're against the rulers and they want to throw them out. And the rulers are killing Egyptians. But even if they got in, they wouldn't know what to do. So I'm going to tell you what we do. Somebody once asked me, who makes the decisions in the Venus Project? So I tried to answer, and the answer was very different than what he expected. We pick up samples of the soil from all over the world, and we send those samples to the Department of Agriculture in different countries. There they cut up the samples and they look at what the soil contains. And they say, by what this soil contains, it's best to grow beets for 3 years, then rotate to sugarcane. That's not an opinion, that's a finding. You understand the difference? Which is the strongest metal? I don't know. Put it in the machine and bend it, and let us know when it bends. That's how you do it. So you do a survey of what the carrying capacity of the earth is, how much land we have, how much arable land, you know what I mean, that you can grow food on, how much water you have under the ground. After your survey, you say the earth can support 7 billion people. If you go 8 billion, you're going to generate malnutrition. If you go more than the carrying capacity of the earth, if you take a state like Arizona and you say, how big a city can we build? The answer is, I don't know. How much arable land is there in Arizona? How much water is there underground? Listen, that will determine the size of the city, not Fresco. No one makes any decisions in the Venus Project. They arrive at them. You know the difference? Arriving at a decision or making a decision. Politicians make decisions. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? You shouldn't do that. You do a survey of what the earth can carry, and then you maintain a population through education. You tell children a story. The story is called Dynamic Equilibrium. And this is a story. You show children this map. And you show 2 coyotes. And you show 2 rabbits. The rabbits eat the plants under the ground. And they multiply. And the coyotes in this area cannot multiply unless there's enough rabbits to feed them. And if there's a drought and the plant roots die, and the rabbits die, so do the coyotes. That's called dynamic equilibrium in nature. You can't grow all the coyotes you want. You have to take care of the rabbits too. Do you understand that? That's why man's decisions are no good. They have to be based upon work like that. So when the Venus Project says all the Earth's resources have to be shared by all the world's people, then no one will invade your country because you control the water and the soil. By force, your armies took over the richest land, and that's why other people invade your land, because they don't have anything. So the war does not occur because people are bad, they are good. You understand? And people ask me, why do all your buildings have curves in it? I don't see any square buildings. Well, because if you take cement and do this, it's self-supporting. That's what this building is. It uses less cement and supports greater load. If you cement this together, it can hold up even more load. A curved surface, a flat surface, can hold nothing. It has no support structure. So bring that gadget over also.
I'd have to do it right here.
Yes,
Because it might be on the ID.
Oh, that's gonna destroy the hell out of that table. You can't, you better use this one.
Why don't you show them?
It's not gonna work, Rock.
I can do it, you want to do it under the brace?
Yes, over
Yeah.
the rest.
It'll be all right, Joe.
No, it won't.
Larry,
Yeah, got
can
it.
you bring some books
It'll destroy
over?
the books, not the
It's gonna
table.
destroy their